And now we get to sprinkle some into Saturday, and that's really exciting for me.
I'm recording now.
Okay, perfect. It looks like it is 3:00 p.m. Pacific right now, and we're waiting on a few more people. So we'll hang tight and give them a couple minutes, and then we will jump in. I was just going to check something, so I'm going to look away from the screen for a second, but I will be right back. Carry on.
Okay. I think we only need Eve, right? That's the only person we're waiting on.
Jill, I think we're waiting on too, right?
Oh, is Jill coming too? Oh, right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Full house.
Yeah, because Jill is going to do the learning module today.
Oh, great. Very cool.
Oh, hopefully she will be here very soon. How is everybody? What's new?
I was just going to say, Leanne, I noticed on the kickoff call too, you seem to have very good lighting, like almost professional lighting and like this like nice neutral flat backdrop.
That's the background of it's my wall color in my bedroom, and I have a window right here. I have another one that's over here. So
okay.
Just good lighting for right now.
I didn't know if you had one of those fancy, like the fancy ring lights on your webcam or anything.
No. Okay. No,
I always wonder about those. Like, how can you look with like towards that light for so long and not feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm always like, wouldn't your eyes start to get a little weird?
I don't know. I would think so.
And I wonder if it gets hot.
Yeah, right?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Jill.
Hey. Hey, everybody.
All right.
How's it going?
Now we are officially just waiting for our pal Eve.
I can ping him if you want. And
yeah, would you mind? That'd be great.
Yeah.
He's doing demos, so I kind of wanted to wait for him.
Oh,
but
right.
We'll see. How did this week go? We'll start off with that. How's everybody feeling? How did the work go? How'd the pairing go? What'd you think?
I think it was great.
Good. You had like good time like coordinating. Everybody was like paired well. Had fun. Did you feel like there were like technical challenges, or do you think like technically these first couple tickets felt pretty comfortable for you?
I know for me personally, I just had a really hard time grasping exactly what React Firestore was doing. And I'm still a little shaky on that. Mm-hmm. I know we had Scott and help us a couple times, just because it was one of those things. I was like, wait, what is this doing? Why is it doing this? Why aren't we just using Firebase to do all this? So just that aspect of it was a little challenging, but other than that, once like it clicked, I mean, it still doesn't 100% click, but once it clicked a little bit, it was easier to progress.
Totally. The good thing too about like using that library is that you're going to use a lot of the same things over and over again throughout the app. So you'll get really familiar with them. You'll get to like dig in a little bit more, like set up the base of like what the functionality is, and then dig into like, how can we filter things and sort things and stuff with it. So you'll get to experience it more. You'll get more familiar with it. What about the rest of you? How'd it go? Good. I'm going to take that as a pretty good. Nothing to report. No news is good news. Okay. Well,
he should be here any second. He had to restart his machine because he.
Oh, good. In that case, does anybody else want to share like just overall thoughts about how week 1 went?
I think that it'll definitely get easier as the weeks progress, because this is like the first time that we're working as a team. So as we get to know each other and as we get like the flow down, I think it'll definitely be easier.
Totally. Yeah. It's like being thrown into like a new job and then just expected to do it. So the challenge of building relationships right off the bat is strong, and you all are going to be such a great team. I'm sure of it, especially when like pairing is such a big part of it. So like you'll be spending a lot of time together and getting to know each other. The processes of how we're working together as a team at large, like the code review and PR process and stuff, will get easier, and things will just become more natural. So it'll be good. Any other thoughts? I'm stalling, just trying to wait for Eve now. I guess I can like, if you don't have thoughts that you want to share, anybody else want to share anything? Leah, Fabrice, anything? It's okay if not.
I mean, just to echo what everybody else has said, I paired with Leanne this week, and yeah, the main hurdle we had was Firestore and Firebase, and just getting the hang of it, since it was the first time that we've both seen it. But once we were able to read through the documentation and play around and figure things out, that's when things started to click, and thankfully we were able to get through it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's like another thing too that I was like, oh my gosh, you all got your PRs up so fast, like right on time. It was beautiful and brilliant. And I was like, oh, this team is going to be good. So stoked about it. The next kind of thing, and we can like talk about this a little more during because the learning module today is going to be on code reviews. So the next thing that we kind of want to look at is did an amazing job of getting those PRs up right on time, did an incredible job of tagging the other pair when it was ready to be reviewed by them. The next thing we need to do as a team is really pull through for the other pair and try and review that code as quickly as we can. Because if there is a feedback loop, if the other pair is oh, we want to see some changes here or whatever, you'll have more time to do that. And then mentors will have more time at the end of the week to jump in and give those final reviews. Because we mentioned this in the kickoff call, but the coding is such a small part of the whole process. And if you can pair really well together in those first couple of days, you can get it done well, and leave a lot of breathing room near the end of the week for everybody to kind of work a little more fluidly, work a little more at their own pace rather than having to cram it in at the end. So I think that's our next big exciting thing to work towards as a team. Another thing on that same note is I want to mention that if you'll recall, every other week is a demo and retro week. So next week we'll be doing a retrospective. And in the retrospective, that sounds weird when you say it more than once. What we'll be doing is we'll look at a project board in GitHub, and we'll have a column that is appreciations, where you'll be able to list 1 to 3 appreciations that you have for people on your team, for people, that you paired with, for the program, for things in your life, whatever you're appreciative of. Just share appreciations. The next column will be what went well. So what in the past 2 weeks, so this week and all of next week, went well. And then the column after that will be what things can we improve. And again, it'll be this week that you just went through and the next week. So be taking notes now, if you can take a couple minutes today to reflect on what went well over the last week and what could improve in appreciations, then you'll be set up so much better when it comes to the retro next week. You'll just be able to drop those in a card and be good to go without being what even happened 2 weeks ago? I don't remember yesterday. So take the notes. You'll thank yourselves later. But keep in mind, too, that this is a super safe space where you're free to be transparent, to be kind and give constructive feedback and help us grow as a team. It's the only way we're ever going to get better is if we're honest with each other about how we think we can improve and what things we think are going really well so that we can keep doing those things. So retros are coming up. We're going to work on getting code reviews done quicker, which we'll learn more about code reviewing today. So maybe if you weren't quite jumping into those right away because you were a little hesitant about what do I even do in a code review, we'll be going over that today after you've had some time to sort of get in there and try and figure it out on your own. And we will keep doing the thing. We'll keep pairing and working and building this app together. So with that, Eve is here now, and I will turn it over to Eve for demos.
Hey, thank you, Stacy, and thank you guys for waiting for me. I'm sorry, I will totally blame my computer for it. Okay,
No worries.
my computer's fault. Anyway, so thank you, and yeah, retrospectives. I love retrospectives. I gotta say, it's so much fun, and it's a great time to celebrate as well. Be like, yeah, we did great.
Yes.
So anyway. So talking about demos, you folks have been rock stars this week. You just kind of is it by Wednesday everything was done essentially?
It was, yes. It was brilliant.
So I was
I was shocked.
Really cool. That was really cool. So thank you so much for that and for putting all the effort and the work into it. So we had 2 tickets. We had on one hand connecting with the Firestore, Firebase, on the end React routers. So who did want to start showing us what you've been up to? Any volunteers?
We can go first if we answer somebody you don't mind.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Fabrice, you wanted to show your screen, right? To see what everything.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. For demos, it's usually good to so since you are working in pairs, one can totally like share the screen and kind of show us visually what you've been doing, and the other one can totally be like explaining, okay, this is what we've done and how we've done it, and if you had things that were more difficult or just easy, feel free to share that feedback. It's always good to know how it went for you. And you can definitely show us, the functionality from a UI perspective, but also it would be cool to be able to look at the code as well.
All right, cool. So if you
want me to go to the browser first?
Yeah, let's just show them like what we can do with the app, and then explain the code from there. So we got this lovely list with items, so we can enter an item in, and so let's say whatever, dog food is good, or whatever you would like.
Fluffernutter or puppuccino. Those are my favorites.
Cat food. All right, let's submit that. And you see it's updated on our list. And then do you have the database also up and running? Looking at bacon, see? Ooh. And then if we go to Firebase, you can see it gets added to the database somewhere in there. Cool. Yeah, and then we can also delete things as well. Like if you can delete from the database, delete an item, and that updates on the app.
I think that was right. For the delete document.
The document might be the one that. Yeah. This NoSQL terminologies.
Yeah.
It's not a record. It's a document.
Yeah. So bacon got deleted, and if we go back to our app, yeah.
Sure enough, no bacon.
Yeah. No more bacon.
Yay! So
awesome.
that is
excellent work.
Thanks. So if you would like to go to the code, please. So what we did, we installed Firebase and React Firestore. And if you go to index.js, you will see, where is it? So we added Firestore provider, which has this Firebase equals Firebase. So that is the React Firestore. That's a component of it, and that is connecting to Firebase basically, and using our database to write to it. And so then if you go, so that's kind of the main thing. And then another thing that we did was we created a Firestore test, which I renamed on my end, and I pushed it, but there's conflicts now because of merging and whatnot. So we might need to go over that to fix that. But right now, in Fabrice's code, it's still called Firestore test. And so this is where we did the input and the created the list. So if you scroll down a bit, there's something called Firestore collection, which has this is loading, data. And And that's from the documents themselves. So I'm still a little kind of confused, but there's the path, which is going to be our items. And then it is just going to go through the data, map through them, and then place those items in a list with the item name. So that's Firestore collection. And then to add the items from the page to the database, if you scroll up just a little bit, we did that with the form. So we had that set input value and just had to click and add item. We made add item, which we forgot to do the event prevent default. So remembering to do that was very important. But this is what writes to our database with a .add, which has the input value. And yeah, that's basically it.
This is looking so good. You guys did a great job of putting that form in place and adding those items to the database. It's going to come in handy that you did it like this. A lot of times we'll say, like, you could just do a button where you use a button to click, and we talked about that like on the previous meeting. But there's a issue coming up that's like adding actual items to the database. So you've already got some of that functionality in place. And what we'll be doing next to this is adding some different like time frames when you might need to buy that item again, adding the user's token to it. So there's like, we're going to be able to build on this really well. And this looks beautiful.
Yeah, this is really good. Nice job.
Thanks.
Nice. Yeah, it's you are now officially the database experts because you about Firestore and Firebase. Just so you know.
Nice to know now. Does anybody want to take a stab at like, Leanne mentioned the loading online 32. Does anybody know what that's doing, or like think they know, or want to talk about that a little bit? I'm happy to explain a little bit further, but if you all want to like just give it a guess at what's happening there, I'd love to hear what you think.
So what I think's happening is that before anything renders to, we're getting anything from the database and rendering it onto the page, we're going to have a little bit of a lag time. So during that time, we're going to have loading, which is just loading ... as a div right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So this like Firebase package will return you an is loading Boolean. So it'll be true or false. And like while it's out there and it's thinking and it's doing its adding, if we don't return this like loading div to show the users that something is loading, it's going to go ahead and it's going to try and execute returning the items and mapping over them. And that item might not be there yet. So you might add the item and it won't be there. So it won't be able to like load it when it reloads that. So having this loading div there is like, until that item's there, don't do anything but say loading. So yes, that's exactly right. And you will see that a few other times throughout building this. So it's a good thing to know. Like you'll see it now, like when you're out browsing the internet and doing other things, like any other thing you do, you'll see this all the time now, and you'll know, oh, there's like an async function or something running that it's like waiting to get a response from. And so it's telling me it's loading. So you kind of can start to see like what's happening on like the back end of the internet to like show me these things. And it's fun. Helps you like think about the internet in a different way, and it's cool. But very good job.
Nice. Yeah, I wonder if was there anything that was like difficult or easier than you thought? Oh, just out of curiosity.
I know just for me, like just wrapping my head around what Firestore was doing, because I'm so used to like writing my own like is loading component. And so having like Firestore already taking care of that. And then also just recognizing like the difference between like Firestore collection and Firestore document and Firestore provider, like just trying to figure out where each one of those go in the code and what their functionality is took a little bit of time. And also, I mean, there's not that many great like examples of it. So like just rereading the docs and like, I feel like we talked to Scott and I asked Scott so many times, like, wait, what does that mean? Okay, explain that again. So thank you, Scott, for your patience as I kept trying to wrap my head around Firestore.
Well, thank you. Excellent work, you folks. Then that's great, and thank you for the demo. And so yeah, we're gonna go to the React Router's part now. So Mabel and Leah, are you folks ready for showing us what you've been working on?
Yes. Yes. So we're gonna be using Leah's screen. So whenever Leah is ready.
Yeah. And maybe you can kind of remind us what you've been working on to start.
You're going to need to stop sharing before Leah can share.
So our task was to implement React Router. So, okay. And we're going to start
showing?
Can
you guys see it?
No, you're good. Yep, thanks.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So Leah and I would like to demo for the team the work that we completed last week. And so as a user, I'm super busy during the week. And so whenever I go grocery shopping, I want to make sure that I have a list of the items that I'm going to buy. And so I'm super excited about this application because I can easily see the things that I need to buy and keep it in a nice place. So when I get to the application, right away, I can see my two choices, list and add item. So I don't have to be looking through a nested list, doing extra clicks. It's very intuitive. So at this point, I would like to click on list so that I can view the items that I have there. And so if you look at the URL, you can see that it's list because that's the current view that we're currently located in. And this view is actually empty. So at this point, I would like to add an item. So I'm gonna go and press add an item. Okay, so again, this component, it's a different view. So we have a different URL. And the super nice thing is that you can easily track where you're located in the app by seeing that it's bold. So right now I'm located in add an item and I can see because it's bold. So the way that we were able to implement this really cool functionality is using React Router. And so the first thing that we did, we went into package.json and we installed the React Router and React Router DOM libraries. And so next we went into the app.js. And there we had to extract different modules from the library. So the router, the switch, and the route. So the router is the wrapping, it's gonna wrap the whole application. And then we decided to use the switch because we wanted to serve just one view at a time instead of all of them. And so we had two different routes, which is the list route and the add. And for each route, we have to provide a component that will be served whenever user navigate to that page. And so since this is something mandatory, we created two simple components and we gave it a text of add component or list component. And we also created a home page because this is gonna be the initial page. So when we come to the application, it's going to serve this code over here. So in the home page, we're utilizing a nav link that was provided by React Router. And this nav link is really cool because when people click on it, they get navigated to that route. And it also features an active style, which allow us to have this font weight of bold. So super useful, out of the box, we decided to implement it. And so that concludes our presentation and we're open to questions and feedback. Thank you.
Very nice.
Very buttoned up. I loved this demo. Great work. So good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And beautiful work. This is clean code. It looks great.
Mhm.
Does everything it should.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm wondering, like, was there any kind of the same questions I asked earlier? Like, was it like smooth sailing for you, or was there things where you're like, how does this work? Like, how did you feel about it?
I think that React Router has amazing documentation, and the fact that everything is so well documented that you can just kind of like copy it, paste it, and then kind of like break it apart. I think that was super helpful for me.
Nice. And I also like how you mentioned that, you decided to make a conscious choice of like, we're going to use the switch component instead of just, throwing our route in there, because I know that this is something that can also be kind of, what's the word, like scratching your head, because sometimes you end up being on a route and then you have 3 components from 3 different routes that are showing up, and it's like, why is this happening? And so being conscious of like, this is the switch component that is, in control of this is a great insight that's probably going to be useful in the future as well. Nice.
Totally. I love it. Amazing, amazing work this week, you all. This is like laying the foundation for everything that this app is going to be built on, and it looks beautiful. I know we've got one PR that hasn't been merged yet because there are going to be some merge conflicts. So let's make sure to get that merged by the end of the day. Merge conflicts can be hairy and can be scary and can be confusing and can, as Eve said, leave you scratching your head. So if you're the team who are going to be doing the merge conflicts and you need extra help, do let us know. Any of us mentors can probably help you through that and give you a better idea of how to navigate merge conflicts. But we'll coordinate more in Slack after this meeting to make sure that gets merged into main by the end of the day. So with that, let me look at our agenda. I think the next thing up is our learning module for the week. So I will turn it over to Jill, who's going to do a learning module on code reviews.
Yeah, code reviews. Yeah, I like that we're going over this after you've had some time to kind of do code reviews yourself, and then just kind of get a handle on it. And now we'll give you some more insight into just like how to approach them. And yeah, I'm curious to hear how those went for you. So let me see.
And while she's pulling that up, I just want to let you all know too, I don't know how familiar with Zoom you all are, but there's a chat box that you can access if you want to make comments or questions or whatever during the presentation. If you want to remember it, feel free to chat away in the chat box.
Okay, I've never presented on Zoom before. Oh, here it is. Okay. Are you seeing my screen? Or?
I see that you're trying to share your screen. It hasn't come through yet for me, but.
Hasn't come through yet here either, but sometimes it's just a little slow.
Sharing is paused. Bring your shared window to the front. What is that? What does that mean?
There it is.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, cool. Perfect.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. Yeah, code reviews. So yeah, just starting with a little overview. We're gonna take a kind of high level overview of like what a code review even is, and then after that dive into the code review cycle, kind of like the logistics of it, differentiating between just like doing a code review and how to actually make it a great experience for everyone involved. How can you help others review your code? How can you review others' code? And then also just some cool tips and tricks that are available in GitHub. And then after that, we'll kind of open it up just to hear everyone's thoughts on how code reviews went for you and everything. So yeah, what is a code review? It's a conversation about a set of changes. And so I really, this word conversation really hits the nail on the head there, because I don't know, when you hear code review, I think especially coming out of code school, you can be inclined to think of it as kind of like you're being graded, or it's like it's this bar that you need to pass. But really, like, you're all on a team together, and you want to make a really good product together. And so how does that happen? By having a conversation about the code that you're putting out there. And so the code review is the space to do that. It's a really good space to share knowledge and learn from others. And so the code that you're putting out there, and then also the code that you're reading from other people, you can learn about how different, how they implement things, how, and then if you learn something really cool, that's a really good place because the code is right in front of you and you're, yeah, it's just a good place to talk about it. Let's see. It's a really good place to collaborate. So yeah, you're sharing your work and also you can ask questions to one another. And this is something I really like, just for me personally at work. I'm a QA engineer and I'm working towards becoming a software developer. And they said like in the code review process, this is the best place to do it. You can really like ask the developers like, why did you choose to implement it like this? And so you're learning a lot more. And then, yeah, it's really beneficial because you improve your skills as a developer, not only learning, technical details, implementation, but also communicating about code, and just understanding the bigger picture of things. But another big part of it is it really helps the team because as everyone is talking about each other's code, you're decentralizing knowledge. And what that really means is you're making your team stronger and less vulnerable to, if someone is to be out sick or something, everyone kind of has a little bit of knowledge about all the code that's going out there. So, I mean, you saw that this week. 2 of you worked on Firestore, 2 of you worked on React components, but by reviewing each other's work, now you know a little bit about each other's work. And so you're a bit more comfortable jumping into something that you might not have directly worked on. And yeah, it makes the team a lot stronger in that way. And in addition to that, you're also sharing responsibility over the code. And what that really means is it's not just one person's responsibility to make the code good, to make sure it's doing its job. It's really the team's, it's the team's responsibility. So that way it's not like someone is being blamed when a bug gets out there. Everyone who took a look at it kind of has stake in it. And so that way it really makes for like really productive like retrospectives and like incident responses. You can like move forward past the mistake that was done and just focus on how it was fixed. It's not like someone's being defensive over like what happened with the code. Yeah, it's just a great way to work as a team. And then, yeah, you're improving your code base quality because everyone has eyes on it. Everyone can kind of like say what's going on in the code. Like if there are different ways to implement something, you can reach a better, maybe like a better solution together. And also like while you're digging in the code, you might also find other things wrong with the code. You can report those. And so it's just like a way of getting a lot more of the code out in the open. So yeah, that's just kind of like a high level overview what a code review is. And so yeah, what it generally looks like. Once you finish developing your branch, you'll open a pull request and submit it up. And then I forgot to ask if anyone has any comments or questions about the previous page before moving on. Okay, cool. And we'll have questions later. Okay, but anyway, yeah, back to the code review cycle. Once you're finished developing your feature, you'll open a pull request and you will put it out there for feedback from your peers, from the rest of the team. And so once you put it out for feedback, you'll receive feedback. And then this middle part is kind of the code review cycle. You get feedback, you have that conversation, you go, you make changes based on the conversation that you're having, and then that'll kind of go back and forth until everyone kind of agrees like, this is a good piece of code, let's merge it into the main branch. And yeah, so it can look a little different depending on what your team looks like. So in our case, we have first you submit it out for peer feedback from each other, and then it goes to the mentors, and then after it has that final check, it's merged. Sometimes there's like QA in there. Yeah, that's the general code review cycle. So yeah, juicy stuff. What makes a code review a great code review? So this first point, I really like this because yeah, it can be tempting to kind of like, you know, check all the boxes. Like, are there any typos in here? Let's see. Yeah, some of these things. You missed a semicolon, you add a space there, and like they're really easy wins. But the thing is, we're coders, and we have tools for these things to, you know, make our lives easier. So Prettier, ESLint, type checkers. There's so many tools out there, and then the more experience you'll get, you'll see more of those. But yeah, let's see. You want to really like save your energy and like your focus on stuff that like you as a developer, as a person, like your perspective to make the code a lot better. Not just like these little things like that. So yeah, don't focus on stylistic changes as much as more big picture things. Let's see. You'll want to try out the feature locally in a test environment, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. But basically, like more than just looking at the code, you'll actually like it can be really helpful to just pull the code down and actually try it out yourself. You can just get a bit more context for what's going on in the code and understand it a little better. Will you understand this code a month from now? And yeah, that's always a really good question to ask yourself as you're reviewing code. Like, does this make sense? And also as you're developing it, like, you know, when you're developing, you're kind of in the weeds, you can like understand like how all these pieces fit together. But a month from now, like, are you gonna understand what the variable like ES2, like, yeah, just little things like that. Do you have comments in there saying what relates to each other? Yeah, it's just like, it's a good mindset to approach your code from, because chances are you're gonna come back to it a month or even longer from now. And you'll wanna like, it's a good thing to do. Praise, this one's important and I'm really happy it's in bold here. Yeah, I think the ratio, and I was reading about this in like relationships, but also just like as people, I think there's a ratio of like, you need 5 positive interactions to make up for 1 negative interaction. And that's just, it's something to keep in mind, because like, you know, you put your code out there and it's like really hard work. And then you get it back and there's just all these things that you did wrong. You're gonna be a lot less likely to like put yourself out there. You're gonna be more defensive over your code. And it's just, I mean, it's just like good to see like the things, in addition to things that need improvement, like the things that you're doing right. So like as you're reviewing code, just say like, hey, I like that you use this library here. Hey, I like that you did this. This is really clean. Yeah, it's just good to hear that kind of stuff. And this kind of leads into the next one, where you want to default to approval. And this one's more just like a mindset for approaching the code as you're reviewing it. Like, instead of necessarily looking for things that are wrong with it, just kind of look at it with an open mind. Say like, oh, like what were they doing here? Because even if something maybe doesn't look like the choice that you would have made, it might not look right to you. It's always a good idea just to ask, like, what were you thinking? I'm sure they were making, like, they had a reason for doing this, and just approach it with that mindset. And yeah, you'll want to be really kind and empathetic, because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're all humans working on code together. We're on a team. And yeah, you want to be able to work together. And the code review is like a one place where you're really interacting in that way. And so just be kind and empathetic in the language you're using, everything. And yeah, you want to help others understand your changes, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail in the next section. But basically, and also try to answer all the questions. When someone has questions about your code, they're taking the time to review it. Just make sure you're like being thorough in both ways. And yeah, take your time. This is an important one, because yeah, you want to, I think it's really like, it's like glamorous to be like developing and stuff, but really a lot of development is actually reading code. That's what most of your time is going to be. It's going to make you a better developer, to take your time and really spend time understanding what they did. And then, yeah, it's just like, this is where, this is what makes good code. Like writing it, like, yeah, you can, sorry, like writing it is one thing, but then refining it and making it better, it's worth your time to take good time on this. So yeah, a little bit more about running the code locally. Yeah, it gives you confidence in just like giving you more context in what you're doing. Just from skimming the code, like something might not, like if you just look at the code in GitHub, you might not see that it doesn't actually load when you try to load it. But yeah, let's see. When you do that, it just shows that you are putting in a bit more effort and you care a bit more about the code. And then you're not necessarily just gonna say like, hey, this looks good to me, because there's a lot more going on there. So yeah, this LGTM, you might see that. I see that a lot when I'm reviewing codes. It just means looks good to me. And it might look good to you, but also when you make that kind of comment, you can also say like, what looks good to you? Like you like that they did this, or you like that they did this. When you're writing in the pull request instructions, when you're writing it out, it can be common to just give instructions on how to actually run it locally. So like, for example, like sometimes it can go as granular as like, pull this branch, install these dependencies, stuff like that. Yeah, it's just like a good thing to do to help others look at your code. And then, yeah, if you don't know how to, then this goes for everything. Like if you don't know how to pull it down, feel free to ask the developer. It's like a good way of like just understanding more about what's going on there. So yeah, how can you help others review your code? Add a meaningful PR description. Yeah, just give context to what you're actually adding. Yeah, basically say like what it does, like what are the different components that go into it, maybe some things to look out for. But yeah, just some context of like what they're actually looking at. Writing meaningful commit messages is always really important. Yeah, it helps the people who are reviewing your code, like what is actually being added. And yeah, I know like sometimes it's really hard when you're struggling through things and you just want to like get a bunch of stuff out there, but yeah, it just helps other people understand your code. Self-review your own code. Try to like, if you can't explain it to someone else, how is someone else supposed to understand what you're doing? So yeah, at least be ready to understand what you're doing. Yeah, question your assumptions about your code, kind of get into it. And then screen capturing tools can help a lot in kind of like explaining things and pointing them out there. So here are a couple links, but even just screenshots and arrows, everything is pretty helpful. Where'd it go? I clicked on the link. Okay, there it is. Okay, so yeah, now here are some like tips and tricks in GitHub that they have in there for you for just reviewing code. And so let's see. This is the pull request page, and if you click conversation, that's like where all the comments are happening. Commits will let you see the different commits. Files change is where you can actually review the different, just like see all the different files in there. You can go through it commit by commit. You can see all the different changes that have been made. But really the best way to like do this is to actually click through and look at the GitHub interface yourself. But here's some just a primer, but there's a lot that's in there. You can mark your reviewed files as viewed, just to help you keep track of what you've actually looked at. Just keep things a little more straightforward for you. This is one I use all the time at my job and I really love it. You can, it gives it makes it a lot easier just to refer to things and saying like, in this file, on this line, I really like that you did this. You can click this little plus sign and then make an inline comment. And then it makes it easier for me to like understand what's going on. But yeah, this is just a few tricks. There's a lot out there. So yeah, try it out yourself. This is a good learning space for that kind of thing. And yeah, here's some further reading on code reviews. I think we can just post these links in the channel, but yeah, it's such a good skill as a developer to have. Yeah, the better code review, like the better you do as a code review, the better coder you'll be. And that's why we're here. So let's see, I think that's about it. I wanted to open it up for everyone's thoughts on how code reviews went. How did you think of code reviews versus how, like, are there any surprises, any things like that?
I'm curious, like, what you all thought when you went to approach them for the first time at Collab Lab this week. Like, what did you think? How did you approach it? What challenges were there?
I have a quick question on the presentation. The screen capturing tools, what are they used for?
That can be like, I really like that when I'm reviewing someone else's code and I can like just show them like, this is like, it's like it's easier to show than tell, basically. Yeah.
Like the screen capturing tools, if you go back in the slides to those GitHub pages that there were screenshots of, you'll see orange arrows and comments and stuff. So like right here, you can see it says like, oh my God. So you can like get one of these screen capturing tools like Sketch or Zappy, where you just drag it across the screen and then you're able to like mark it all up and like send pictures so people can see. So they're super duper helpful. I use it a million times a day.
There's so many instances in my work where, you know, instead of having like a long conversation of like, so what is this? And then you reply 5 minutes later, this is, you know, and you have this long Slack conversation about the issue, then with like a 1 minute video call, then you can just, everybody is clear about what you're talking about. So, you know, sharing your screen can really have this easy, like, this is what I'm talking about factor, and instead of like, you know, making things more complicated, I guess.
Cool. Yeah. So how did it go this week? How was everybody's code review experience? So curious.
Had you all done code reviews before, like in boot camp or anything like that? Did you have experience with it, or not really?
Well, I had experience doing code reviews, but like for example, when I did the code review for the other team, I wasn't sure if I should make a comment, like maybe suggestions on like clearing out like a certain message, like LinkedIn message. Like there's nothing wrong with the code, but it's like, is that an appropriate place to maybe give suggestion, or it's just don't say anything at all?
No, that's a totally great place to make a suggestion. And it's like when you're approaching your code reviews, kind of like I was saying in this presentation, like be kind and be thoughtful and offer suggestions if you have them. And as long as you're not like hung up on like the nitty gritty little things that don't matter much, if you feel like you have like a valid suggestion, totally share it, because it's probably something that they hadn't thought about. And if they have thought about it, they can tell you like why they chose to do it the way that they chose. So it like is a really great way to spark conversation. So if you're reading through it and you have thoughts and suggestions, always share them. And another thing that like I think is helpful when you're kind of newer at code reviews in general is if you don't know what to say, if you're looking at the code and you're like not really sure what the code does, looks like code to me, I don't know, like the best place to start is just being like, ask a question like, what does this line of code do? Or why did you choose to do this way? And it can kind of, again, start getting those conversations rolling so that you can learn more about the code that's getting put in place. And then the other team too can have some, you know, experience explaining it. And it can kind of help like rubber duck and open up their minds to like, oh, why did we do it that way? So just by like opening the floor for questions and like being inquisitive, you're like building relationships with your team and building better products.
Another cool thing about code reviews is that, let's say you are hired for a new job and you have a team that's been working on this project for like a year, and you know nothing about the project. You're just like, this is your first day. Here's a PR. And so this is a great way to expose yourself to the code base that you're going to be working on. So like, by just reviewing what your teammates are working on, you get familiar with the product, with the features that you're working on. And that really helps you like have this common knowledge as well. So just something that just came to mind.
I love that. I love that so much. I think that like, especially just in these first early weeks at Collab Lab, like code reviews can be like, it can be nerve-wracking to approach them, but I think if you keep in mind that you should pull the code down and test it. And again, like computers are always something that, like the command line, I was always like, oh no, I don't want to, oh God, what is happening there? Why is it so black and white? And so like, I was always scared of using the command line, but the more you actually make yourself pull these things down and check out different branches and mess with Git from your terminal, like the more comfortable you're going to get, and you're going to be a whiz at it in no time. So force yourself to pull the other pair's code down and test it locally. It is an invaluable experience, and it's going to help you. It's going to like accelerate your growth. So pull down the code, ask questions in the code review, give praise and be kind and be inquisitive, and default to approval. If you think the code looks good, if it works good, that's what we want. Working code is better than perfect code. So you review it, you ask some questions, hit approve if it's working, and then you can move on to letting them know like it's ready for mentor approval. And another thing I want to point out is I think Fabrice had merged one of the PRs, but he's like, everybody didn't get a chance to review it. I'm sorry. And that's like totally fine. Like we fully encourage every single one of you to review the code because again, it's a good way to get your hands on the code, see what the other team's building, learn, get familiar with it. But when it comes down to it, like you might 1 week not have time, and that's okay. Try your hardest to get that code review in. But as long as it has one approval from the other pair, you can like ask for mentor approval. Again, try to both give approval because you're just going to learn and it's going to be great. And then when it comes to mentor approval, the same thing. Like I encourage all mentors to go in there and share their perspective. But if you have one approval and the feature is working, then you can go ahead and merge the code. So I hope that clears up kind of some of that confusion there. Any more to add on that? Anybody else want to talk about their experiences with like approaching code reviews this week, or like something you're looking forward to doing next week?
I saw Fabrice was you were unmuted a minute ago, so I was wondering if you had something to say.
It was my first experience with the code review for the most part, and I guess my first mistake as well. But good to know. Thank you, Stacy, for clarifying as far as the process. But yeah, it was my first code review. I didn't feel like it was too intimidating. I think the main thing that I'll definitely keep in mind is just to make sure that, whatever suggestions or comments, just to make sure that you don't take them too personally, just to try to remain as objective as possible. But I feel as if now, at least just going through this presentation here with Jill, I plan on at least trying to be more descriptive as far as suggestions and whatnot, and just to make sure that I don't nitpick or anything like that.
Yes, I love it. I love it so much. Okay, any last thoughts before we move on to seeing what we're working on next week?
If nobody has anything, I just had a little thing that I really like about GitHub is that when you do a PR, when you open a PR and somebody review it, when you comment on lines, you can actually do suggestions. And so what suggestions do is that you actually say, oh, this line of code, actually, I would write it like this. And what you can do that the other one can just click on, I accept your suggestion, and it will be a commit in your PR. So that way you can just say, oh, I would suggest to change your code to that, and the other one just have to click the button, and it's committed and ready to go. So that's just a little trick I like.
I love that. Thank you, Eve. That's so good. Okay, with that, we're crunched on time, but we're going to fly through this next part and figure out what we're doing next week. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott, who's going to go over next week's issues. Oh,
Muted,
you
Scott.
muted? Yeah, okay.
Make sure you're paying attention. All right, so issue 3. As a user, I want to set up a new shopping list so that I can start tracking purchased items. A shopping list consists of a set of items associated with a user's token. Creating a new list consists of the following sequence: generate a new unique token, save that token to local storage, and show the user the list view. You can use this script that Andrew wrote. It's in your source file library, tokens.js. The acceptance criteria are: for users who do not already have a token or list, a button or link exists on the home screen that allows them to create a new list. Clicking that button or link generates a new token and saves it to local storage. And once the token has been created and saved, the user is redirected to the list view. Does anybody have any questions about that? Comments, additions?
If you pop open that full issue, Scott, I left some notes and the wireframes that we can take a peek at. So
Oh yeah, actually I've got the wireframe up right here.
Okay, great. So this wireframe will kind of help you through what that's supposed to look like. And I want to note, this is in the GitHub issue for you to look at. But when you're looking at this wireframe, please do not try to build the whole thing, because the whole thing will be built over multiple stories. What is sufficient for this is just the create new list button. And I've left a note on the issue to remind you of that. But this can kind of help wrap your mind around what exactly needs to be done there. So what we do like in this part of the meeting is we'll go over both of the issues. And if anybody across the whole team has questions or ideas about it, please speak up. We'll assign them afterwards, but we really want to make sure that everybody knows what's happening like app-wide. So like Scott said, does anybody have questions on what needs to happen here?
So to be really clear, like this story is just that create new list button. It's everything underneath that is, you can ignore that for now, and that'll come in a later story.
Yes, exactly. Try and always stick as close to the acceptance criteria as possible, because that's all you have to do to complete your ticket. It's just the acceptance criteria.
And some local storage. Yay, local storage, all the things.
So good. So
this is such a great, I'm so happy to know about that now. Right.
All right.
Let's see here. So there we go. Ticket 4. As a user, I want to add a new item to my shopping list so I can start recording purchases. A shopping list item consists of the following data points: the name of the item, how soon are you likely to buy it again, soon, within the next 7 days, kind of soon, in the next 14 days, not soon, within the next 30 days. And you also want a last purchase date. The acceptance criteria for this are: the user is presented with a form that allows them to enter the name of the item and select how soon they anticipate needing to buy it again. Soon, kind of soon, not soon. When the user submits the form, the item is saved to the database and associated with that user's token. Along with the item name, an integer corresponding to the estimated number of days until the next purchase is saved: 7 for soon, 14 for kind of soon, and 30 for not soon. The last purchase date should be set to null initially, which means that you can create an item without purchasing it. And let me take a look at these wireframes here. Screen management. So this is the form up here, and obviously the buttons. And any questions there?
Does it make sense, this kind of label with a for attribute? Is that something that people, the way that that's worded? This is the first time using the wireframe, so all feedback is welcome. If this is at all confusing, please tell us so we can change it for everybody else. But
I have a
question
on the no, because I see that we're picking 3 options: soon, kind of soon, and not soon. So when does something get set to no?
That's a great question. So null is going to be the default attribute of the last purchase date. So the idea with this app is that you add items like as you're buying them generally. And so you can also add an item without a last purchase date. And like, so it should like default to null in that attribute on the database. Does that make sense? Is that right? That's the intention?
Yeah, like when you're adding it, you could set it to null, and then you have to, in the list view later, you'll be marking it as purchased. And that's when the last purchase date will be added for the first time.
Can I rephrase that again?
Okay, so on
No.
sorry.
I was saying that I can rephrase that again as well.
Oh, sure, yeah, go for it.
So the way I think about it is, so you're never going to go to the grocery store on Thursday, but it's Monday, but you're putting stuff in that list. You haven't purchased it yet. So that last purchase date is null because you haven't purchased it yet. And then on Thursday, when you go to buy it, you'll click it as purchased, and that last purchase date will then not be null.
I love it. That was beautiful, Scott. Okay. One thing that I really want to call out here, and this is like why we go over all the tickets together, is that these tickets seem very closely coupled. When you add a new item, it's going to have a user token that's going to be associated with the list that's being created. So at this point, one team is creating a list that has a user token, and the other team is supposed to use one of these user tokens, but they don't exist in their code yet. What? That's confusing, right? So you want to think of a way, if you're the one adding the items with the token associated with it, since you're not going to be dealing with the token at all, you have no idea of what that token is or how it's generated, you'll want to find a way to just have some like fake token that you'll use just for this development. And at the end of the week, when we merge it all together, that's when you'll take the token that the other team made and plug that into the functionality that you build. So again, try and keep these very scoped to what the acceptance criteria is asking for, because you don't want to redo work that your teammates are doing. And I encourage you to work very openly in Slack and talk as a full team, even though you're pairing with one other person, like have these like conversations with everybody so that everybody can be on the same page about like, if you are doing the add item ticket and you're like, oh, well, what is that token even going to look like? Just ask the other teammates. They'll probably know because they're the ones building it. So be extra communicative here, collaborate with each other, and know that though we're working in pairs, we're building this whole app together and we have to work as a full team. Okay, back to Scott. You can assign them.
All right. Does anybody have any particular preferences here? Teams?
Feel totally free to jump on something if you think that it looks interesting or it's something you're like excited about. Take it. Do the things you're excited about. But if you don't care, Scott will just assign them randomly.
Going once.
All right, looks good. What do you think, Scott? Who's getting them?
Let's see here. Take a look at my groups. We got Leah and Fabrice here.
Amazing. So Leah and Fabrice are on the creating of the shopping list with the unique token using that script. That's a fun one. The tokens that are generated are really wacky.
That assign them appropriately? Yes. Sweet. All right.
Awesome. Mabel and Leanne are on the adding of the item, which is great because that form's already in there and you're just going to like plug some new things into it and make sure you're hitting those acceptance criteria using some kind of fake token to do your development. Later in the week, we'll like plug in the real one. So this looks great. One thing I want to call out just before we get off is that like we want to try and keep a big part of like collaboration is the organization of your project, right? And we use this project board for the organization of ours. When you're out like in a different development team, you might use something like Jira, or like if you're on a smaller scale, some people like will just use something like Trello or Asana or something. So you want to keep these nice and tidy so that everybody knows the state of the project. So before the day ends, if you, your pairs could go in and make sure these cards are in their appropriate columns. Like I know that the router one should be all the way to the right in the done column and the issue should be closed. And we'll do the same thing for that other PR that's not quite merged yet when the time comes to, so that we can look at this and know exactly what the state of the app is in. So with that, we all have our issues that we're going to be working on next week. We're going to do a couple little cleanup, wrap up things on the ones that were done this week to make sure everything gets merged into production. But other than that, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns that you want to go over before we end this meeting? And we're, of course, always there for you in Slack. If you'd rather ask in Slack, or if you don't even know you have a question yet and it comes up, always feel free to ask. We're always here for you. But any thoughts? Any thoughts? My apologies for all the screaming babies. There's so many of them.
That's great. I'll take it.
Yeah.
We need more. I need more screaming babies.
Babies and dogs everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we'll share the link to those slides in Slack so that you can go back and remember, like, oh, what goes into a good code review, because I really want to approach mine very intentionally next week. We'll have those for you with those resources. We're here for you if you have questions about doing those code reviews as well next week. We're here for you for questions as you dig into these tickets. But let's try and have our pairing done, or like pairing scheduled by today or tomorrow, and have those PRs up again really early, just like you did last week, so that we can like make sure we've got this like well-oiled machine that just works flawlessly. You guys have been a dream team so far. I'm stoked about it. So great.
Nice work, everyone. Great job on the presentation, Jill. Good job.
So
That's awesome.
good. Demos were beautiful. I love it. I could tell that
Mm-hmm.
you all prepared in advance, and that is golden.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Off to a good start.
All right. Such a good start. Okay. With that, we'll close this one out. There will be a recording if you want to go back and check it out. And we will wrap up last week's issues and get started on the next one. Amazing work this week. I can't wait to see what you do next week. Okay. Take care, everybody. We'll see you around.
Good job. See ya.